and emotionally disturbed. He knew this hurt Ted, but the boy needed to hear it in order to shape up. Still, despite his flaws, there's no question that Ted is a genius. As Turk steps into the band room, a few students are warming up, and then he notices Mr. Roberto, who approaches with a generous smile. Mr. Kaczynski, hello. Please, grab a seat. The two pull up a pair of plastic chairs, and Turk gazes across the classroom. How's the band this year? Ted says you're his favorite teacher. Well, that's very flattering. He's a special kid. Special's an understatement. I'm guessing you heard? He got into Harvard. Roberto pauses, suddenly looking wary. Yes, that's actually why I asked you in today. I don't know exactly how to say this, but have you considered that maybe Harvard isn't right for Ted? You're kidding me. The boy's got an IQ of 167. Yeah, Ted is clearly brilliant, but emotionally, well, he's just not as mature as other seniors, and I don't think it helped to skip him 2 grades. I mean, take the bomb last year. That wasn't Ted's fault. All he did was share some basic science. Regardless, it shows poor judgment. Plus, Harvard's a different social sphere. Students there come from a certain class. Turk feels his face grow hot. Just because I make a living making sausages, that means my son isn't good enough for Harvard. I see. You know where Ted gets his IQ from? From me. Well, I don't doubt that, Mr. Kaczynski, but there's an elitism at Harvard that has nothing to do with intelligence. And Harvard's just a pressure cooker for anyone, let alone someone so young. Have you considered Oberlin College? I suggest it because it's got an excellent music program. Turk stares at the music teacher. He can't believe this man thinks he can just intrude on their lives. Mr. Kaczynski, I'm going to be blunt. I know you're proud of Ted. Damn right I am. But your pride will doom him. Harvard is not in his best interest. Turk bolts up. He can't take it anymore. You know what's not in his best interest? Having to listen to idiots like you. Before Roberto can protest, Turk throws open the door and stalks out. He took off work today. And for what? To have his judgment questioned? Evergreen Park, Turk thinks. A dead-end school. He should have expected this. Turk gets into his car and slams it in gear. As he pulls out of the parking lot, he makes a promise to himself. His boy's going to Harvard, and that's final. Later that year, in the summer of 1958, Ted Kaczynski stands on his front lawn, waiting impatiently. He desperately wants to get into the car and finally head off to Harvard. But first, he has to deal with his parents. His mother is making a huge fuss. She's trying to get a photograph of what she keeps calling Teddy's big day. Ted scowls as she and his father fidget with the camera. Ted is, of course, excited about Harvard. For the first time in his life, he'll be able to meet people just like him, smart, curious about the world. It'll be a different universe than Evergreen Park, Illinois. Maybe he'll even meet a girl. He also can't wait to get away from his parents. His mother, Wanda, is always telling him what to do. Join a club, or try and make friends this way or that way. Even today, she's trying to control everyone. She made him dress up in a sports jacket just for the photo. And she did the same for Ted's little brother, David. The boy is barely 9, and here on the front lawn, he looks miserable in an oversized jacket. Ted watches his mother struggle to tame David's cowlick, but he can't stand it anymore. He barks at her to take the picture. Finally, the family lines up. There's a click, and the photo's done. Ted exhales. He's ready to leave. But first, Wanda pulls him aside and says she wants to talk for just a minute. Ted groans. He can hear it in her tone. He's about to get another pep talk. And sure enough, Wanda says she knows he had a rough time in high school, especially socially. But Harvard will be better. Ted mutters to himself and starts to walk away. But his mother grabs his sleeve, surprisingly hard, and she looks right into his eyes, says that she's proud of him. Then she hugs him. Ted hates this. He doesn't understand why people are always touching, so he just stands there stiffly. Finally, Wanda pulls away and says, "I love you, Teddy." Ted rolls his eyes and says he's in college now. It's Theodore, not Teddy. His mother looks hurt, but she repeats the message. "I love you, Theodore." And grudgingly, he says that he also loves her. The front door of the house swings open and Ted's father, Turk, comes bounding down the steps. He says they're going to be late. Ted breaks free from his mom and tosses the suitcase in the back of the car. Before she can hug him again, he jumps in the passenger seat and locks the door. Ted sees his brother David standing in the doorway. Ted gives a quick wave and then turns away as his father starts the car. Soon, their little brick house disappears into the distance. Ted feels himself relax for the first time in months, maybe years. Finally, he's leaving Evergreen Park, a town full of small-headed people who are never smart enough to understand him. That's why he never fit in, and why he never made friends. But Harvard will be different. Ted smiles. He knows the worst days are behind him, and he can't wait for his next chapter to begin. Hi, I'm Lindsey Graham, the host of Wondery series Business Movers, where we dive deep into the inner workings of some of the most successful companies of all time. Before they were renowned and revered, they were young upstarts with big ideas and even bigger ambitions. But how did those ideas become reality? What was the one daring move that changed the game? What was the decision their leaders feared making the most? How did any of these companies grow from a mere dream to a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Hear the stories behind the strategy, the scandal, and the stunning triumphs. The first season features a name that's been synonymous with the entertainment industry since the early 20th century, Walt Disney. Learn how even when faced with nearly insurmountable obstacles and wide-ranging skepticism, Walt Disney remained true to his vision and brought his world of magic to life. Business Movers is available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Start your free trial of Wondery Plus in the Wondery app to listen early and ad-free. Wondery. Feel the story.
Wondery's new true crime podcast, The Apology Line, begins with Alan Bridge posting flyers around New York City asking people to anonymously apologize for their crimes. Not to God, not to the police, but to his answering machine.
I guess what I do is I just say I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's too late to apologize for it, but
I broke in.
I embezzled $400,000.
I killed a man. I killed Henry.
We killed him, but we didn't mean to.
Alan got dozens of calls from people claiming to be murderers, but one stood out, Richie, and his calls would leave thousands wondering if he really was the serial killer he claimed to be, until Richie offered to provide proof.
With your apology, what do you expect from me? Do you want me to send you pictures? Or should I call this line the next time I have someone here?
The Apology Line premieres on January 19th on Apple Podcasts, or you can listen ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app.
It's October 1958 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Ted Kaczynski steps out of his dorm in a hurry and begins making his way across the quad. He looks down and notices the pants he's wearing are stained. His stomach grumbles, and he realizes that all he's eaten today is half a sandwich and some milk that may have been spoiled. Still, right now, Kaczynski has all he needs, his trombone and his sheet music. He's on his way to band practice, but he needs to hurry, otherwise he'll be late. As he races through the quad, Kaczynski can't help but feel a dull frustration coursing through him. Because even though it's hard to admit, Harvard's been a tough adjustment. Back home, he never had to work for his straight-A grades. But at Harvard, he's barely pulling C's. The social scene is even worse. Everyone's dad is some rich banker or lawyer or even a senator, and all his classmates want to do is sneak liquor and go to dances. He's not interested in either. But band is different. The kids there are quirky and creative. It's his only refuge, the one place where he feels he belongs. That's why Kaczynski has been looking forward to band practice all day. But now, as he turns a corner, he stops in surprise. Normally, the band practices inside, but today everyone's out on the lawn, and they're spread out in formation. Kaczynski finds the trombone section leader and asks what they're doing. The girl explains that now that it's cooled off, it's time to practice marching. Marching? Kaczynski grimaces. In high school, he hated marching. Made him feel like they were all a bunch of army grunts, that they were following orders just because someone told them to for no logical reason. Kaczynski tells the section leader that he doesn't like to march. She just snorts and says that if he wants to play in band, he has to march. Kaczynski protests and says his high school band teacher let him skip marching practice, but the section leader looks exasperated. She tells him that if that's what he wants, then he should go back to high school. Then she adds that he's the right size for it. Kaczynski feels his stomach drop. He's always been sensitive about being small, but then a fury takes hold of him. Then he says he refuses to march. That's final. The girl shrugs and says if that's the case, then he can't be in band. She then pushes past him. For a moment, he's stunned, and then Kaczynski turns and storms off, furious. He can't believe that this is what Harvard is like. Even the musicians are conformists. He can feel it in his bones. He's glad to quit. He heads back through the quad, but as he returns to his dorm, he realizes he now has nothing to do but study. He doesn't have plans tonight or all weekend. He realizes then that he needs to find something else to occupy him, something intellectual. He doesn't know what it is yet, but he'll start looking. A year later, Wanda Kaczynski is cleaning out Teddy's old bedroom in Evergreen Park. She finds a stack of old magazines and stops. She takes them and sits down on Teddy's twin bed, and she begins flipping through issues of Scientific American. Bittersweet memories come flooding back with every page. She remembers how when Teddy was a child, she'd hold him on her lap and read these magazines to him. He always had the smartest questions. Pains her to remember how close they once were. Now Teddy's a sophomore at Harvard, and she hardly hears from him. To make matters worse, it sounds like he's lonelier than ever. She wishes she could do something to help him, but sitting here, halfway across the country, she's not sure what she could do. Wanda hears a thud from the front of the house. It sounds like the mail arrived. She could use a break from her heavy heart, and so she gets up and heads downstairs. She's flipping through a pile of coupons and catalogs when she spots an envelope with a crimson seal. It's something from Harvard. Wanda tears it open. It's a letter from a research psychologist there, someone named Dr. Henry Murray. He says he wants to enroll Teddy in a psychological study. It will be a friendly discussion about philosophy and life. The goal of the study, Murray says, is to contribute to the solution of certain psychological problems. But Murray says the issue is that Teddy is still only 17. He needs Wanda's permission to enroll him in the study. Wanda frowns. She's not sure what psychological problems Murray wants to study, but she reads the letter again and her concern for Teddy overtakes her. He was supposed to meet friends at Harvard and maybe even a nice girl, but he's spiraling more than ever. He even quit band. That was the one place he was happy. Wanda looks again at the permission form. This Dr. Murray is a psychologist, someone who helps people with their problems. Maybe he can help Teddy. She's not sure about the study, but she is sure that if Teddy doesn't get help soon, he'll be in big trouble. So she grabs her pen, signs the form, and goes to find a stamp. She's going to mail this off today. A month later, Dr. Henry Murray takes a seat inside the Harvard Psychology Annex. Murray is a 66-year-old psychologist, and right now he's inspecting the room where his next experiment will take place. It's covered in wallpaper with tiny yellow flowers, and an entire wall is dominated by a one-way mirror. Murray cracks his knuckles and turns to the young man sitting in front of him. With his freckles and red hair, the man looks young enough to pass as a student. But Murray knows the truth. This man is actually a lawyer, and he's a key part of Murray's psychological study, which begins today. When the study's participants arrive, they'll be told that they're debating a fellow student about their philosophy on life. In truth, they'll be debating one of the fiercest young litigators in Massachusetts, and Murray wants this lawyer to break the students down. That's the point of the study. But right now, Murray is frustrated. The lawyer keeps asking whether he really should be so aggressive. Murray shakes his head and tells the lawyer he needs to attack the students. He needs to make them squirm. What Murray doesn't say is that he has ties to the intelligence community in Washington, D.C., and throughout World War II, he worked for the precursor to the CIA. Murray studied spy interrogations, harsh ones, and this study is the culmination of his work in the field. Now he wants to see what happens when a group of 22 students are verbally brutalized and receive this treatment on an ongoing basis. But first, this lawyer needs to toughen up. Murray tells the man that he can't be soft. The U.S. is still at war with Russia, and the country needs this research. With that, Murray asks who the first participant is. The lawyer consults a sheet in his lap and says the first up is codename Lawful. Murray's eyes light up. He's been eager to test Lawful, his codename for a sophomore named Theodore Kaczynski. He's young, blue-collar, and appears to be the most alienated. That should make for a highly combustible mix. Soon the interrogation will begin. Murray pulls up a chair behind the one-way mirror and settles in to watch the sparks fly. It's the fall of 1960 and a year later. Today, Ted